All right, guys. So let me put it in presentation. Okay. Okay. So I hope the slides are visible to everybody.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's get started. So, in last week's session, we did talk about advanced agile techniques, right? We did a deep dive for the last 2 weeks to understand the different techniques, the processes, the framework on how the agile team works and how can we behave or get into or adapt ourselves into in an agile team. Correct, we understood the formulations, the methods, and everything, right? So from this week onwards, for the next couple of weeks, we will be back to the core concepts of RPA, in order to understand that what RPA stands for and what exactly an RPA BA needs to do. So till today, the sessions that we spoke about was very much generic to give you an insight or give you the feeling of how the business analyst role works, what are the traits you need to possess as a part of the business analyst role or any business analyst role that you try to apply into the market. Now, for next couple of weeks, we will be corely focusing into the main agenda, which is the RPA concept. We will try to see the different aspects, the different methods, functional approaches of dealing with RPA processes and RPA projects. Okay, and post that in the at the later part, we would deep dive again into certain digital aspects of how do you do a business analyst role for a digital project. Okay, so let's get started with this. So today's session is on module 4, and this is about the basics of robotic process automation. Okay, before we get started, all right, so let's see, apart from Daisy, because she has been a part of the previous program, other two, Bilha and George, do you have any idea about robotic process automation? What does it stand for? What do we do with RPA? Any idea? Any brief knowledge you have?
No, I don't.
Okay. What about Bilha?
Not quite, but I guess if I took a lucky guess, just to say
Hmm.
about helping projects come up with like a product or project automation. Especially, it's more focused on information technology and software development, but we don't do the development part, but just like to guide the team in doing a development of a feature or a product for an organization.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now let's give the chance to Daisy to tell us what is robotic process automation.
Oh, okay. Um, robotics process automation is basically taking a process that is, I want to say, that has predictable steps and having, I guess, a robot, or rather having it automated so that instead of a human being, um, you know, doing the work or doing the process, you have a computer basically doing the work.
Hmm.
I know that's a very layman way of explaining it, but I
No,
think.
that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. That I mean, you have hit the right point, but let's try to do a deep dive, for others as well. So what does robotic process automation do? So robotic process automation, popularly known as RPA, is actually a development framework for software robots that uses automation technologies to mimic any tasks of human workers, let's say, such as extracting data from multiple storages, filling forms repetitively, the data entry task, moving, let's say, huge bunch of file from one location to another, which consumes your repetition of work, and it is done again and again, etc. So all these such kind of work when we think of getting automated, we have the platform which is known as, or the technology which is known as RPA, that tries to develop a software robot which is not rather a typical human robot. It's a programmed software robot that tries to mimic human action while accessing any application, while dealing with data and various other tasks on the software platform. It also combines, different applications, user interfaces to integrate and perform repetitive tasks between the enterprise production applications. Okay, by deploying an RPA robot which emulate the human processes, RPA tools complete the autonomous execution of various activities and transactions across different software systems. Okay, now let's say I have to move certain data from one location to another, take out the data from there, open up Microsoft Excel, do some calculation, generate a report, and then send those report out to my business stakeholders. Correct? So this is a systematic human repetitive task on the software platform, which can be automated by an RPA technology, where a software robot would be doing that work on behalf of the human. So RPA software isn't just a part of your, IT infrastructure of the organization. It does not depend on what sort of software platform or application you are working on. RPA robot sits on top of any application that you use in your organization. Let's say you are using ERP, Oracle as an ERP. I am using SAP as an ERP. Someone is using another different tool as an ERP. So all these applications, on top of it, RPA can easily go and sit, and your software robots can do the action on your behalf. So what generally is understood is RPA, for implementation of RPA, we do not need to change the baseline of our existing software infrastructure or the existing softwares that I'm using, unless your softwares are very old legacy softwares, which itself takes a lot of time to respond. Correct? Now if your software itself is very old or legacy software, then there is no point of you developing an RPA robot and putting it on top of it, because your software itself is taking a lot of time to respond. Correct? So in that case, your execution time is never going to be less. Right? So there are certain exceptions to it, but on top of it, your RPA robots can execute on top of any business application, mimicking human actions, and then start processing and completing the task on your behalf. Okay, and RPA is now also getting advanced as we talk more about machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning. It is also, RPA is also now getting integrated with all such technology platforms. And from robotic process automation, we are slowly moving into the world of intelligent process automation, what we call it as IPA. Okay, and we will talk about all these concepts in detail in each of the modules. All right. Okay, so this is what is about my what RPA is all about. Now let's understand the evolution of RPA. Okay, what are the factors that drive the development of a technology or a platform such as RPA? There are three drivers that contributes to the evolution of RPA. One is the need or the urge of automation across industry, across the globe. So in any original form, automation has been around us since the revolution of the industry. What does it do? Automation describes quite simply the processes that happen without manual inputs or manual interventions being required from a human. That's what is an automation, right? Now, in early 1990s, automation made its way into the computer processing industry as well. Now, the rise of graphical user interfaces, right? If you see the inception of operating system, Microsoft Windows, initially it was a black screen when it was invented, right? We used to call it as DOS. It was a black screen where you need to type, give some commands, and based on which your computer needs to use to perform. But then slowly we got into Microsoft Windows 97, Windows XP, all this graphical user interface based, softwares or operating systems came into the market. Especially, that requires wherever there is graphical user interface, the requirement of automation level piles up. Okay, so when someone clicks a button, it kick starts an automation process in the background that just don't lead to the next step, but also, tracks the entire process that you are doing. Correct. Previously, whatever you used to write commands in a DOS, these days what you do, you go and double click on it, your operating system reads that click activity and it opens up a file for you. Correct. So it has made the user interaction or the user experience more simpler. So when we talk more about graphical user interface, the concept of automation itself, takes fits much more better. So the first driving factor was automation. Now let's say when you talk about a more complex form of automation, we have also seen that, Excel macros was developed in the earlier days. Correct, where we use VBA, Visual Basic, as a programming language, and we could automate certain Microsoft Excel related information, or how we used to deal with data, which are which were, certain rule based, and that describes a series of process where I have some if condition and I have some else condition. That means if this happens, this will happen. If this does not happen, this is not going to happen, right? So this is what was the urge of automation. So in RPA, the letter A stands for automation, as the ability of automation of digital task has evolved from just simpler button clicks to complex macros to now even intelligent automation. It's the evolution. Okay, now the second factor that contributes is something called as workflow management. The workflows streamlines everyday processes and activities that we carry out, even in our personal day-to-day tasks or even in our organization. They are essential in any business looking into your process, from production to your internal task management, your following up with your stakeholders, your interaction with your customers. Everything has a workflow. Correct. It has a sequence of tasks which contributes to a workflow based on which I get my output or my outcome. Let's take the example of a real estate. Okay, so what happens in real estate? If you want to buy a property, what do you do when a new buyer goes and submits, talks to the, real estate agent, right? You talk to them, you are interested, your deal is now done. So then you start to submit your paperwork. Correct, you apply for a loan, your workflow of loan approval kicks off. That includes anything from information verification to customer verification to chasing for any missing application, and eventually your loan getting approved and the amount getting dispersed to your account. This entire process is a workflow. Correct. A workflow like this is planned because you want to avoid any unwanted in situation or missing steps. Correct. You will not be A bank will not be giving a loan to a customer without his or her identity verification or without proper documents verification. Correct. So that's why there is a requirement of a workflow design, so that your sequential steps takes place in a certain progression, and then you get the outcome. All right. So like automation, workflow management has also been around us since the start of the modern industrial enterprise era. Okay, now it's contributed to the rapid rise of RPA over the past few years due to its ability to combine with automation. Now when we talk about automation and then when we talk about workflow management deals with sequential steps or tasks, right, which are at times mundane or repetitive. Correct. So today automated so with So two things. One is workflow, another is automation. Both together combined in today is forming automated workflow that can take care of multi-level activities together synchronously and concurrently. Okay, automatically assigning and executing activities to keep the process moving forward, right? at a- because at every workflow stage I might involve different people, like as I said, the loan approving process, correct? Initially when you apply, the screening is done by a team. Second, once identity verification is done by a different team, income verification is done by a different set of people, approval or validation or audit is done by a different set of people, correct? So all these are sequential steps where it involves different set of people. So all these tasks that are assigned and executed can easily be, automated. That's why we are forming automated workflow. So workflow management deliberates to the letter P, where we talk about process in RPA. It's the process just waiting to be automated. Over the years, we have seen an increasing demand towards this requirement of RPA, just because automated workflow has become the need of the hour for any organizational industry. And we'll see why, what are the benefits of it. We will talk about it. Now, the third driving factor for evolution was advanced technology aspect, or what we can also name it as AI. Now, AI and its close subsequent technology platforms like machine learning and others have revolutionized the world of business across several industries in today's world, right? Tasks that used to require human input and intervention can now be easily automated without any human intervention. And also, wherever we required human capability, human cognitive behavior, like decision making skills, that is also possible in today's industry, right? That means from analyzing your complex data to planning for your future aspects or your future predictions, what might happen, fraud detection, intrusion detection, spam detection, all those such kind of processes are now being revolutionized with the contribution of AI. And over the next 5 years, AI will more exponentially increase as per the latest industry standard by Gartner, and it will grow by more 40 to 50% annually across the globe. Okay, so that's why, robotics, or the letter R, contributes in RPA. The intelligent technology ensures that the automated workflows can go beyond my simple tasks by automating complex processes, and then it improves the processes over a period of time. Let's say I'm doing a task manually, it is taking me 1 hour. When I automated, it is getting completed in 10 minutes. Now imagine 1 hour is to 10 minutes, the divergence in the duration of executing a process. Am I not saving remaining 50 minutes of an employee's time, with which I can ask the employee to go and do another piece of work, correct? So rather having to focus on automation standalone, we also talk about various exceptions that the automation should, incorporate with it, correct? So AI's self-improving components can cover and even build rules specifically for dealing with our business exceptions as they are discovered. All right, so that's what, is the evolution of RPA. And as we advance towards the technology, RPA, as I said, is now getting incorporated with intelligent process automation, correct? Now, in order for the RPA tools in the market to be remain, competitive, to be more technologically advanced, they need to move beyond just a normal task automation and expand their offerings into intelligent automation. And this type of automation expands on RPA functionality by, incorporating disciplines of AI, machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision. These are all the advance of intelligent process automation that we will talk about. Okay, so that's how the evolution is happening. from a normal automation workflow to macros to RPA to IPA with the with the advent of these technologies. All right. Now let's see the spectrum of RPA. Okay, what all can be achieved using this. So first of all, it is about the adoption of robotic process automation that has been a novelty for enterprises ever since they have identified the ability that RPA robots can do wonders. The task load of the resources can be minimized drastically. Faster execution of the processes can be done. I can save human efforts drastically by just automating a specific process. Right. So if we see that initially the spectrum includes integrated desktop. So the moment when we talk about things coming to uh, the data and all other businesses comes from offline to online, correct? So here we try to consolidate data from multiple sources into one single viewpoint to complete one process. Second is my process automation. We try to apply technology to manipulate the existing software to complete a process. And can I put an RPA bot on top of my current process so that the execution is much more faster? Next is digital or virtual assistant. We are now creating chatbots. The moment today you visit any website, you will see there's a pop-up that comes up from the right bottom corner, where you have a digital or a virtual assistant where you can do an inquiry, you can talk. There's an automated support that is there to answer your questions, correct? And then we talk about the next spectrum, which is the cognitive behavior or the AI approach. Cognitive behavior is nothing but the systems that gain knowledges from data and make decisions. Similar to how human adapt to different conditions, situations, we observe, we learn, and then we decide, right? That's what is called the cognitive power of human. Similarly, when we indulge into such kind of an activity by a computer machine, we try to incorporate, sorry, the system tries to incorporate those cognitive behavior so that how the system can learn, the system can only learn from one thing, that is data. The more data I push it into the system, my system becomes more intelligent and it will be able to make decisions for me. So that's the overall technology spectrum of RPA. All right. So before we move on to the next, let's pause here for a minute and see if there are any questions. Anybody, any questions till now?
Okay, Paul, I have a question. I don't know how it's related, but I have.
Mhm.
Could you say like IA is like a component of RPA then?
You mean AI is a component of RPA?
Yeah.
No. See, AI is the entire technology spectrum.
Okay.
Okay. RPA is just a piece of, see, let's say this is my AI. This
Mm-hmm.
entire spectrum is what we call as AI. Okay.
Okay.
Under AI, we have different sub process. One is machine learning. Then we talk about deep learning. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about intelligent automation or intelligent
Mm-hmm.
process automation, IPA. So what is RPA? RPA is normal process automation where I have a process. I have 4 steps to do to complete a task. Now, instead of me doing it, it's a rule based, so I push it onto the system. I program it so that now a software bot is able to do it. Okay. And my 4 tasks gets completed, I get the output. That's what is called it as process automation. What macro used to do in Excel, you used to write VBA program so that your reporting or your data processing gets automated and you don't do it manually, correct? It's the reduction in effort, time, and also the faster execution. Now that's what I was saying, that RPA is just a software robot to deal with your process automations for faster execution, less human interaction, less human error, and all these things. The moment I advance this RPA, okay, with certain advanced technologies that falls under AI, okay, my RPA transitions. So here you are just following a rule based process. and completing your task. If you are not able to do a human behavioral or certain kind of a decision making is not there. Now, to get the decision making skill incorporated, I need to indulge technology like AI. So the moment I put AI as a part of my process automation, it becomes intelligent process automation, where now I can ask the system to go and do a decision on its own, driven by the data that I have ingested into my system. And this is what is contributing to the cognitive computing or cognitive behavior of systems.
All right, I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes, makes sense.
All right, perfect. Let's move on. So next, let's quickly see, what are the benefits of RPA? Why should I do RPA in my organization? Now, from the inception of RPA and from last 5-6 years, the more, RPA has become a revolutionary buzz of technology across the industry. There has been different benefits that, different companies or organizations try to pull out of RPA. First of all, you as an organization should know that what is your requirement. Okay, based upon which if you implement an RPA, you would get the benefit. Let's say higher accuracy. Now what does this mean? Now let's say I am dealing with a process of accounts. Okay, my team is working on a process where there involves a lot of accounts related calculation. Okay, now the more human does it, there is a chance that there could be a mistake. Now when I talk about accounts, it involves dollars. Either my company is paying to somebody or I'm receiving money from somebody. Now in both the cases, if there is even a minimal difference of decimal. Okay, let's say I need to get $1,000.20. Now let's say this 20 cents is not being calculated. Now that's from one vendor. Now how if I miss 20 cents from 1 million vendors that I'm working with? Multiply the number and see. Correct. So wherever you deal with numbers, sensitive processes, your accuracy matters. So if I can see that my accounts process is highly rule based, I have a specific formula to calculate how much I should pay or how much I should receive, I can easily put a software robot, program it accordingly, and ask it to do the task instead of a human. Right, so that my accuracy is increasing. So accuracy and error goes inversely. The more accuracy or the more accurate you are, there are less chances of error. Correct. Or if you are doing more error, you are more prone to have less accuracy. So right, so based on my process, higher accuracy is a benefit that I would get out of RPA. Productivity, as I said, I am doing a task. Let's say I have a team of 15 members. Okay, I have a company. Let's say you are working for Facebook or you are working for Apple. Now Apple runs multiple processes across the organization. Multiple teams are working. Now just imagine one team in one team, one process. It takes one person to work 1 hour to complete a task. Now, the moment I bull in an RPA robot, the bot is able to complete the task in 10 minutes. So I'm saving 50 minutes of working hours of an employee in one process inside my organization. Now, what if I calculate, I identify such similar processes where automation can go in and I reduce, let's say on an average 30 minutes of working hours of my resources. Now let's say I have 1,000 resources under me in my organization. Imagine 330 multiplied by 1,000, how much of time I am utilizing, I'm saving. And these much hours of work I can get done, push them to do another work. So that's how the productivity benefit comes into picture. Next is non-invasive. Why non-invasive technology? Because as I said, RPA does not require your current existing application baseline to change. Let's say you are using Oracle and you want to automate a process of pulling out reports from Oracle database. You don't have to change Oracle. I can easily develop a software RPA robot using any of the platforms that will go and sit on top of the application, your ERP, and interact with it as you do and get your job done. So since I do not need to change my existing infra of my applications across the industry, we call RPA is non-invasive because The underlying softwares does not require any change. There is no cost for a company to go and change the set of softwares they're using and then apply RPA. No, it's not like that. Second is rapid ROI. Now, when I talk about high accuracy, I talk about high productivity. What is ROI? Return on investment. Now, let's say I, as an individual, as an organization, I am investing, $10,000, or let's say $30,000, uh, to build the RPA setup in my organization. Correct. Now, this $30,000 is an investment for me. It's an expense to my company. Now, whenever an organization does an expense on a technology, it also expects a benefit out of it. What is the benefit that I'm expecting? If I'm investing $30,000, what is my return on investment from RPA? I would get higher accuracy. That means my errors are going to reduce. That means there is a very less chance that I will go into any calculation or calculative loss. My productivity is increasing. I'm saving employees working hours. That's a return on investment for me. I can put them to do different more tasks. Correct. I can do processes execution much faster. Correct. So these are all the different return on investment, and it's very rapid. Why it's rapid? Because you do not have to wait for 1 year, 2 years of time after investing on RPA. The moment you build your setup, you put your processes in, you set up your expectation, you automate, you put it into production, you are ready to get the benefit. Cost reduction. That means when I'm reducing the working efforts of my resources, I'm eventually doing a cost reduction. If I need 20 people to do a task in a process, in a team, and if I have one single robot which is able to do all the work, then why should I keep 20 people in that process? I can get a cost reduction of these 20 resources, right? And then I also can do insights and analytics. Now, since it's automation and I have a digital process, I can generate data. I can take out the insights that how much time a robot is taking for executing a process. What are the utilizations of my robot? Are there any process changes that I need to do so that I can even reduce the working or efforts of a robot itself? Okay. And then analytics will help me to understand the business better. So these are the benefits that we get out of an RPA implementation. Now let's understand what is a process. When we talk about RPA, when you talk about processes and everything, we should know what is a process. So today, RPA has evolved into an intelligent and data-driven automation platform capable of streamlining dynamic and more complex processes. Now, what are these processes for us? A process is nothing but when we talk about a set of interrelated activities that transform my input to output. Correct? That means, let's say I need to add two numbers using a calculator. What I would do, I would first take the calculator, I would put my first number, I would put my second number, I would put addition to it, and then I will press on equal to, I'll get the output. So what was my input? I had two numbers to add. That was the input. What is the output? The additional result that I'm getting. And how did I get it? I followed a certain interrelated activities. That's what is the process. So you have an input, you have a process flow, and that connects you to an application and you get your desired output. That's what is a process for me. Right? So RPA can also be used to identify and assess processes to see if they are the right process candidates for automation to happen in the first place. Okay, it's like it happens that initially when RPA came into the market, companies started to evaluate processes incorrectly. They were not able to evaluate that what is the right process for me to put into RPA. They used to take processes that does not fit into the automation criteria. And we will see, we will deep dive into these areas of how do we identify processes, what are the parameters in our upcoming sessions, right? But now let's understand what the process is all about. So RPA serves to automate the parts of the business processes that are manual and that are repetitive in nature. Right now, RPA success hinges on the ability to carefully analyze my process, identify what is the repetition of portion, create a pre-RPA and a post-RPA process map, that what right now is my scenario, what would be the scenario post implementation, what is my current state, what is my future state. So all these analysis we will see, and these all contributes to an effective process evaluation. Okay, now when we talk about, you know, identifying any process, there is a thumb rule that generally gets applied, and this is at a very high level. Okay, this is at a very high level. When we deep dive in the future sessions, we will see how a potential process is identified using certain parameters. Now on a very high level, if you need to understand that how would I know that whether a process is RPA potential or not, first the process needs to be rule based. The process should follow a certain strategic rule. Let's say I am doing a reporting work. Now, what is the nature of a reporting work? Right? You would open up first, you need to collect the data. Let's say I'm logging into Oracle, I'm pulling out some data, I'm copying the data into an Excel, I'm doing some calculation, I'm creating a report, and then I'm sending this report over an email to my business stakeholders. So here, if you see this interrelated task, it is a sequential task one after the other, which is making a process. And all these are rule based. Now, let's say if I do not plug in the data from Oracle database, I will not be able to create the report in Excel because data itself is not there. Now, even though I have the data, I don't do the analysis in Excel, I'll not be able to publish the report to the stakeholder. Correct? So these certain processes are rule based, where I follow a specific rule, and that can be programmed, is where I can say RPA is possible. First. Second, your data needs to be digitally triggered. It has to be digital. That means your data needs to be on the system. Let's say certain companies receive invoices, hard copies, right? You go to a restaurant, previously what they used to do, they used to give you a hard copy. You get the invoice, or you get the receipt, or you get the bill as in paper. Right now, anything that is in hard copy or in papers, that process cannot be automated using RPA, because the data is not in the system, it's not digital. Now when you go to a restaurant, they will not give you a hard copy, and even after COVID, they prefer it to send the invoice or the bill back to your email address or to your phone number or through an app. Correct? Such kind of processes again then can be evaluated. So anything that is digital is applied. Second is functioning and stable. Let's say this reporting process which I spoke about, I'm pulling the data from Oracle, I'm using it in Excel, creating the report, and let's say I'm sending the mail through Gmail. Correct? Now here I am using certain applications at every stage to complete my task. To store the data, I'm using Oracle. To pull the data, I'm using Oracle. To process the data, I'm using Excel. And to send out the email, I'm using Gmail. Right now, let's say this is a process which is functioning. Now, what is functioning and stable? A process that is right now not followed. What is the even benefit or ROI you would get in terms of automating a process that is right now not there? Right? We are not here to automate something that is not into the business in today's world or today's time. Correct? Now, what is stable? Now, let's say this reporting process, I am saying you that, hey, you know what, today I'm using Oracle, Excel, and Gmail. You know what, there's a probability that 6 months down the line I'm going to replace Oracle to any SAP. To download the report, I'm going to replace Gmail to Microsoft Outlook. And I, as a business analyst, is asking you, then what's the duration? You are saying over the 3 months to 4 months of time. Then I would say, hey, you know what, since there is not a stability in the process, You have a future transition to happen. Right now you should not be indulging this process into an RPA. Because why? Because the current bot will interact with RPA, the bot will interact with Oracle, it will interact with Excel and Gmail. But you are replacing Gmail with Outlook, you are replacing Oracle with SAP. So 4 months down the line, your process is changing with new set of softwares. So these current robot will become redundant. You need to redevelop it, right? So if you say that, you know what, it's okay, but it's not 3 months, it's 1 year, 6 months down the line, then it's up to you as a business that whether are you are eager to invest and then develop it. But I, as a business analyst, would highlight that as a risk. So my process needs to be functioning and stable. High volume. Why? Let's say I'm dealing with 1 million data rows on a daily basis. Very, very, very high volume of data. Correct. Now, if I have to process 1 million data rows manually, imagine my task. How many resources you need to keep? So anything that has a huge volume can easily be automated using RPA. So these are the 4 ground rules. If these fits in, you could say that, you know, okay, this is a RPA potential process at a very high level. But yes, we will also learn to further deep dive and do a more analysis and see and finally come to a conclusion in our subsequent sessions. Any questions on this page from anybody? Yes, no, understood, not understanding,
I
clear, not
understand.
okay, great. Now, let's look into the steps that involves in RPA automation. So as I said that, you know, I have a process start and I have a process end. So if I see this diagram, so let's say I have a process which is starting here. The first step is that I'm reading an email through my mail application. Let's say I'm using either Gmail or let's say I'm using Outlook to read my incoming mails. Okay. Now from these incoming mails, I am reading the data, or let's say I'm downloading the attachment and I'm opening the attachment using Microsoft Excel. So my step one was to read email, which is using one set of application, let's say Outlook. Second set of application is I'm opening the attachment. This is involving Excel. Third is I'm entering the data from an Excel, let's say into an ERP platform. What is this ERP platform? Let's say it is Oracle database. So this is my third application. Now, let's say my process is saying that once you enter the data into the Oracle ERP, you are trying to see whether your process has any escalation. Okay, let's say your process is an SLA. You need to enter the data into Oracle. Let's say the day you receive the data, within 2 business days, you need to enter the data into your Oracle ERP, right? So here you would check whether this data was within these 2 business days. That means whether your SLA, what is SLA? Service level agreement, that this needs to get into the system within 2 business days is met or not. So that means if you are breaching SLA, there is an escalation, which is the yes path. And if you are not breaching SLA, that means it's the no path. Your process stops here. End. Correct? Or rather, I would say the end is here. Now, if there is an escalation, you need to analyze through your employees or processes, that you do an RCA, root cause analysis, that why there was a delay of more than 2 days to get the data entered into the Oracle ERP from Excel. And then your process ends. Okay, so in such case, if this is my process roadmap, so I know that I need to interact with one application here, one application here, one application here, one application here, and then my process ends. So 4 applications are involved in my entire process. Correct? And these are my steps: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and step 6. Step 6, step 7. That comprises of my process right from the starting till the process ending here. So that's my process roadmap. right? So these are the stepwise analysis that we do to understand that which part is potentially automated, potential or not. So reading an email from an Outlook, it's automation potential. I can automate it. Opening the data in an Excel from an attachment, it is potential. Copying the data from Excel and putting it into an Oracle ERP, it is possible. Now, to identify whether there is an escalation or not, we need to see. Now, this is where it's a human intervention might required. Or let's say I know that the day the mail has come in and the day I'm putting the data into the ERP, if I subtract this data from this date, I would know that whether it is more than 2 days or not. That means it is rule based, correct? Here I can easily automate. I can calculate the difference and I can do a validation whether it is more than 2 days or less than 2 days. I do not need a human. But let's say I do not have the date here to capture. Rather, I need to do some due diligence and then decide whether it is a miss or not. In such case, I need human intervention. Then I would say this might not be possible with normal RPA. That means this portion is not RPA potential right now. Analyze the error. Yes, I would say that whether there are certain rules that I need to see, and based on which I should decide whether it is what was the miss, I can do it using RPA. But if there is no rule, this is situational. Human due diligence is again required. I would say no, this is not RPA automation potential using my RPA platform. All right. So that means this process has 3 steps: potential, automation, potential, 2 steps, not potential. So we will see later that how do we evaluate such kind of a process. But just to outline you that how can you do the steps and do the due diligence, this is the process roadmap that will help you. Now, what is process analysis for us? Correct. So process analysis helps us to understand or do the planning and the execution that can help with whether my process is compliance related. Compliance means, let's say you are, when you log into certain website, you need to enter the captcha code, right? This is an additional security. Now, entering a captcha code is actually not allowed through any robot or automation, because this is for a human security level intervention, right? Certain organizations does not allow to automate captcha code by a robot because you are breaching the compliance. So if your process involves that you are logging into a website to pull some data and that website login has a captcha, it's a compliance issue. So now you need to have a planning with your compliance team and get the approval that whether they are ready to automate or allow the automation on this website. Else you need to find a different process. Second, operational needs. What operational needs you have? Is it the high volume that is causing the problem? Is it more human error that is causing the problem? Is it lack of process knowledge that is causing the problem? So you need to do a proper process analysis. Managing risk. Are you willing to do RPA so that you want to minimize the risk that is associated with your project? Or is it a continuous improvement? So sometimes what happens is companies are doing RPA so that they can improve the process from manual to automation. So all these things would come up under your process analysis phase. Now there is a thick difference between a process and a procedure. And what is it? So a process, as I said, is a series of related tasks or methods that together turns the input into an output. That's what is a process for me. Correct? Now, what is a procedure for me? A procedure is a prescribed way of understanding a process or a part of a process. As I said here, that this is entire process, correct? Step by step. From input, I'm getting my output. Now, what is a procedure? A prescribed way of undertaking a process or a part of a process. Now, let's say I want to understand only this escalation phase. So the entire process is this, out of which I'm trying to understand only this part of the process through a proper manner. That's what is a procedure for to me. correct? So that's the difference between a process and a procedure. Now let's see the use cases of RPA across industry, right? So RPA fits into any industry that you can talk about, starting from banking to financial clients. Let's say you have banks like Citibank, you have Bank of America, you have Wells Fargo, you have Barclays. All such banking industries are now using RPA. Technology and software industries like IBM, Accenture, Infosys, any other top tech industries that you talk about. Telecommunication industries, AT&T, you talk about Verizon, Horizon Mobile, all, Virgin Mobile, sorry, they all are using any related process related work. They're using RPA. Manufacturing, starting from your GE, your General Electrics, to any of your manufacturing firms, they also involve the use of RPA. Governments, government firms are also trying to implement, you know basis different requirements. Healthcare industries, medical and healthcare processes, are also trying to indulge into RPA these days. And what sort of task they're trying to automate? They're trying to first, based on the processes, they might be targeting to do reporting automation. Every company has reporting, right? Every company has ERP transactions. Every company has data format conversion or data transmission. Every company has some other ERP or Citrix. Every company deals with a lot of mails. Every company deals with applications built on Java, Python, Angular, JavaScript, anything. Every company deals with documentations or Excel, right? So if I segregate, these are all the common areas or utilizations or use cases that falls into any industry, right? So the replication or the utilization of RPA is very dynamic and vast across all industries across the globe. That's why there is a buzz. That's why the requirement is increased, since the ROI, the benefit, the return is so high, and you can literally transform your processes from manual to automative. That's why RPA is the buzz. Okay. So let's understand that what are the top marketing players in the industry of RPA. So as per the latest 2021 Gartner report, and Gartner is a globally recognized strategic, council or committee, you can say, who gives recognitions across the industries of different sectors. So as per Gartner Magic Quadrant 2021, who are the top players in RPA? First is UiPath, is an automation company, and we would focus more into UiPath as a platform to understand our RPA learnings. Second, so if you see here, I rather show it like this. So if you see here, they have created a quadrant. Okay, they have created a quadrant here, and they have named it as leaders, challengers, niche players, and visionaries. Leaders means these set of companies are already excelling in the RPA world. These set of companies, they are challenging these people and trying to come into this market. Niche players, this set of companies are developing and evolving with the RPA evolution. And these set of companies, they are willing to excel and come to this leadership quadrant or go to this quadrant in future. So what are my top leaders? UiPath is the market leader as per 2021. This is where we were going to focus as a platform. Okay, next is Automation Anywhere, second company into the global RPA industry. Third is Blue Prism, and fourth, Microsoft. Trust me, Microsoft actually started back in 2019. Okay, and by 2 years, Microsoft has evolved and went into the leaders quadrant. Whereas let's say UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism, they got kickstarted around 2011 or 2012, and they got boomed from 2016 onwards. Okay, so Microsoft, considering is already a tech giant, got the leverage to come into the leadership market. And what Microsoft platform is, what we call it as Power Automate. So Power Automate is the Microsoft's tool or the application name that they have created for RPA. All right. Now let's see that as an RPA business analyst, what are the various, not even RPA, in the entire RPA stack, what are the different roles that are involved for a specific firm. Okay, so first you will have the RPA executive steering committee, the management who would drive these automations, or who would fund, or who would be the decision makers to fund RPA and allow the RPA to come into my organization. So they generally are the decision makers and act as RPA sponsors. Then I can have somebody who is the head of RPA who would manage the entire RPA in my organization. And then I can divide different roles. There are infrastructure engineers who would lay out the IT infrastructure and cloud services that are needed. Lead solution architect, they would do the design, that how a bot should be designed. Lead RPA developer, they are the ones who would develop or code. Then I have lead project manager to drive the projects, correct? This is where we are interested. Lead RPA business analyst and business analyst. So let's say if you are a beginner, you might be a business analyst, and once you are promoted with certain years of experience, you could be a lead business analyst into the today's IT world. So this is where we are interested in. Other role involves change manager, lead RPA supervisor, RPA analyst. So based on your expertise, you can get into these roles as well. So these are more of a functional roles, okay, and these part is more of a technical roles. Okay, solution architect to lead solution architect, RPA developer to lead RPA developer. So this is actually the baseline with, let's say, 0 to 4 years of experience, hypothetically. And this is the baseline where I'm looking to 4+ or 5+ years of experience. So my transition in the role wise happens from here to here. Okay, so these are the different job categories that you could target as a part of your RPA journey. If you are on this side of the quadrant, so this is where you should target. If you're starting as a business analyst, lead business analyst, then you can become a senior business analyst or a team lead. So like this, your transition would eventually happen. All right. Okay, so with this, I would stop today's session, and let's see if there are any questions on whatever we have discussed, and then we will have a quick deep dive into the assignment. I think it's a very
Yes.
silent session.
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So when you talk about the escalation, I didn't really understand very well. Is that like the result, or which other word would you use instead of that? The
So
RPA.
see, yeah. So see, this is just a hypothetical process roadmap that I showed, that if I need to start a process journey and see that which phases of my processes or steps are potential for automation and which are not. Okay, now escalation is a process, is a part of the process where it might be a human decision to decide whether there is an escalation or not, because human would eventually evaluate a situation which a robot cannot do because it doesn't have the intelligence. Okay, RPA, now let's say if this escalation is rule based, then RPA can do. What is rule based? As I said, let's say the ERP, the data needs to go into the ERP within 2 business days from the day you receive the mail. Now let's say today is 19th Feb. Today I'm sending you the mail from client. It, as per our business agreement, within 21st Feb, this data should go into my ERP. That's the business agreement for us. 2 days. Now let's say for some reason either you received the mail late or whatever. I, through RPA, what I can do is, if I need to do it as a rule based, I can see that what date I received the mail, 19th. Let's say I entered the data into ERP on 23rd Feb. So I would see the date on which the data was entered, subtract this date from the day I received it. It is almost 4 days. That means based on this rule, that upload date minus receive date should be minimum less than 2. Here it is 4. I can say that there is a SLA breach. That means it is more than 2 days. So there is an escalation because you have breached the SLA. So this is just a very lower level or a high level of understanding that whether my escalation yes or no is a situational based, driven by human intervention, or it is a rule based through which I can identify whether it's a yes or no. If it is rule based, I can see that whether I can put this into the automation or not. And if it is situational, I would put it as out of scope. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You would eventually understand, the more we deep dive into further analysis and breakdown of steps, it will be more clear to you that how to decide what is potential or what is not potential. Sorry, go ahead. There's one more question, I think.
Yeah, mine is a very quick one. When you were talking about the evolution of RPA,
Mhm.
that would be your second slide. You talked about artificial intelligence and workflow automation, but I think I missed your explanation for screen scrapping. If you don't mind explaining that just one more time.
See, these are all screen scraping is all a part of integrated desktop. Your screen scraping, data scraping. So what you do, why you do screen scraping, or why you do data scraping? To collect the data, right? What is screen scraping? Let's say I need to browse through certain 2,100 pages of Amazon. Okay, let's say I'm willing to buy iPhone 13 Pro. Now I want to see that what is the price in Amazon, what is the price in Walmart, what is the price in Best Buy, what is the price in Apple Store. Now if I have to do it manually, I will go to each and every website, I will see the price, and I will manually collect the data. If I do a scraping, I can just put the page of Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, and Apple Store, and collect the data and put it into an Excel for me, where it's at a glance I can see with an eyeballing that, whoa, okay, these are the prices that I'm having, these are the offers that I'm having. So scraping is nothing but a collection of data. So when you talk about integrated desktop, methods like scraping helps you to consolidate data from different multiple sources so that you can view it in a single place.
Okay, thank you very much. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Anything else? Any other questions from anybody? Yes, no?
No
All
more
right.
questions from me.
Perfect. So what you're going to do is we're going to quickly jump into the slides, and let's look into the assignment. So yeah. Okay. So for Daisy, I think you would have already done it. Okay, so probably you can look into the feedback and try to see if you can optimize it and resubmit it. So I think it'll be a cakewalk for you. But just
Okay.
for the interest of others, so this is an assignment where we expect you to do a research on all the three RPA giant tools that are in the market. AA is Automation Anywhere, second is UiPath and Blue Prism. Try to identify the major differences between all these platforms and see why, how are they at, indulging their customers. Okay. Second is perform an analysis, revenue growth, or tool flexibility and customer experience. So consider these parameters and see how Automation Anywhere is different from UiPath and how UiPath is different from Blue Prism, kind of an inter tool or inter, market research on how, what is the revenue of UiPath, how the UiPath has grown, Automation Anywhere, how Blue Prism has grown, what is the flexibility, what is the customers talking about all these three platforms. And third is identify two challenges, what the customer feels are there on UiPath, are there on Automation Anywhere, and are there on Blue Prism. Okay, so this is just to do a market due diligence for you, so that you, though we would emphasize on UiPath as a platform, but I want you to be aware of what Automation Anywhere and what Blue Prism is also doing. And Daisy, you can go ahead and add Microsoft Power Platform. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yep. Any questions on the assignments for Bilha and George? Are we good?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I think we are good. So you should go ahead and start working on your other assignments, everybody. Please review the comments that I've given on the Dropbox. Okay, and let me know if there are any questions. So I think others can drop, and Daisy, you can just wait for a second here.